focus on a market which will be large in the future, not now. You're looking for 360-degree profiles, but with some spike, which they've truly pursued. You look at athletes, you look at any profession, you look at acting, even all the glamorous professions you look at. I mean, even if you look at the footballer, do you think Ronaldo has a balanced life? No, he doesn't. Right? Of course, works hard like anything. It is good to rely on external opinion. Sometimes conviction is a bad thing. No one cares about productivity if you're doing entrepreneurship. What matters is total production. It's like productivity into number of hours.
Okay.
Like that's what matters. We need people who are very proactive about something, and if they've done something beyond what's been asked of them.
Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Dil Se IIT Delhi podcast. Joining us today is Aryaman Tandon. He's a 2009 Mechanical Department graduate from IIT Delhi. He's also the managing partner and co-founder at Praxis Global Alliance. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, what was your journey of cracking JEE and getting into IIT, and what does IIT Delhi truly mean to you?
Yeah. Firstly, thanks a lot for hosting me for this. Really appreciate. And I'll try and do justice to your questions and make it as interesting as possible. My IIT journey, by the way, was very different. It's not like the traditional journey. I was in a boarding school. Boarding school life is pretty tough. You're actually not even allowed to attempt JEE in school.
Oh.
Literally not allowed, because you had 3 hours of mandatory sports every day. You had like 10 kilometers of running every day. You had co-currics and all. Like boarding school life is very different.
Oh.
So, of course, I did happen to get through. I went to IIT Roorkee first. Of course, couldn't get time to prepare. Then I left Roorkee in between. After the first semester, I ran away actually.
Oh.
I'm like, I don't want to live in Roorkee. I want to have a good college life. I want to live in a city. I want to do multiple things, not just, academics and all. Because I had a very different, life in school. So anyway, I took JEE again, then got through Delhi, thankfully. Thank my stars for it. Joined mechanical engineering. And that's, my entry story. So nothing very fancy, didn't go to Kota, didn't do all of it.
Yeah.
I think I was lucky, right, in that way. And IIT, I think, I think it's a great college life. It gives you both. It gives you a very solid launchpad for your career. It also helps you get a very good college life. I did a lot of music in my college. I was a professional musician. I played across the country. I made a lot of friends from a lot of different campuses.
Yeah.
Lived in a proper city, which also helps you groom yourself better, for the world. So I think it's a great culmination of really smart people in one
place
who will get to do will be doing a lot of great things in the future.
Totally.
So you build a very good network, which is helpful. And I think it's a lot of fun. You learn a lot, and it's a great place to be. I'd love to, given the chance again, I would, and I have to choose my college life, I'd again choose IIT again. So I had a wonderful 4 years.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Talking about campus life, you were very active in Rendezvous and also been credited for the biggest rock show.
Yeah.
So we had some insights on that. We want to know what was the experience like.
Yeah. So I first became a musician. I used to, I had my own band. We played across, I won Inter-IIT, by the way, before even starting a Rendezvous. In Chennai, and then I realized, look, there is a lot of potential here.
Yeah.
So we started our own band. We played across the country. In fact, I won Blitzkrieg immediately after I passed out.
Yes.
But I organized Blitzkrieg for 3 years. And the last one which I did when I was, I think, in the 4th year, I was the coordinator, was probably the biggest ever. We had 15,000-20,000 people. We had some very attractive, bands which performed. It was a great experience, I think, because I think that's why, even when we hire from IIT, we always look at POR because it tells you how you can manage crisis. It tells you a lot, about the individual.
Yeah.
So it was, I think, a very good 360. You need to sell because you need to get marketing.
Totally.
You need to manage security. You need to manage ops. You also need to do a lot of marketing. so that you're able to get a lot of attendees. So it's a very good experience. I loved it. I'd love to do it again.
And considering the fact that your co-founder is also an IITD alum.
He's much senior to me though.
Yes.
He's O2 batch, I think. 2000.
Yeah, so how did that happen? Like, we know that IIT network is pretty strong.
Yeah.
But then again, working with a senior, how did that take place?
Yeah, so it was, I'll tell you a funny story. It happened when I was in Bain. So after IIT Delhi, I joined Bain, through the campus placements. In fact, I think it was my happiest day in my life because I was the first person on campus to get a job offer day one.
That's lovely.
That's like 8:30 a.m. placement starts. 9 a.m. I had an offer from Bain. So it was like, I was thrilled. Like, how did it even happen? But anyway, I joined Bain, and in my third year there, I met Madhur, who was of course my partner, and we were a little bit outcast there. We like, kya hai? This is too easy. We are doing the same thing again and again. In fact, in Bain, like, people used to make fun that, how do you have such a good life? Because I used to work like 40 hours a week, 35. It is unheard, 40, 45 hours a week. 50 max.
Enjoy it a lot.
I was okay. I enjoyed it. But after 3-4 years, in fact, a lot of people don't know I left Bain twice. I left once after 3 years to pursue entrepreneurship.
Okay.
I was doing something in solar. For the rural India, solar lanterns. I spent some time in a very small town in UP to distribute these solar lanterns that we were manufacturing. And I remember three co-founders, we stayed in a hotel room which cost, the best hotel there was 500 rupees a night. So we stayed there, and in the middle of the night, the geyser burst.
Oh no.
In our bathroom.
Okay.
And then we had such a traumatic next day, and I'm like, look, we can't do this. We need to do something else. We're not made for it.
Yeah.
And I came back, then we tried something in education, but it was very early for the time. So I joined back Bain, then left again after 3 years to start another SaaS venture. So I had done a lot of things, grappled and all. But anyway, so coming back to your question, Madhu and me did a project together for the first time in Bombay, and that's how we got to know. And we were a little bit outcast there in our own unique ways, and he was, of course, this very high extrovertish, and I was a little bit on the introvertish side. But we always felt that we could do much more. And there's, I really had a great time at Bain. I learned a lot. Everything that I'm doing today, I credit it that that's the only employment I've ever done in my life. I did about 7-8 years. But yeah, I realized that it's time to start something of your own. Yeah. And by the time I left, 7-8 years, I think 7 years at Bain, I realized might as well do something which you already know, which you're good at.
Right, that's fair.
So that's why we started Praxis. Yeah.
When we talk about trying multiple things and, gaining experience, there are two things. You either keep persevering or you quit at the right time.
Yeah.
So how do you make that decision?
That's a very tricky question because both are important.
Yeah. To identify whether to quit or just to...
Correct. I think, the way to think about it is that when you're pursuing something of your own, you become, and I know it's a gray area. There's no right answer, to be honest. What you're asking is a very tricky question. But in such cases, it is good to rely on external opinion because you become so, focused. Sometimes, sometimes conviction is a bad thing because if you have conviction about the wrong thing, it actually doesn't work out. So it's always good to have good sounding boards, who you ask opinions regularly for good experts in that area. I think taking external help and having that mentor network always helps because then you get a good sounding board that what I'm doing, whether it makes sense or no, or is it just my rigidity and my, stubbornness about making this successful.
Chamber just keeps telling.
So this is what happened, when I moved out of Bain and I started this SaaS venture called TAP, which was a recruiting marketplace. I first started off competing, look, we'll make a much better employment job creation platform. I started competing with Naukri. And then I realized, look, there is no point doing something again, which Naukri has already done over so many years. And they're already pretty good at. There's no problem there. There's nothing to solve. So we pivoted. We started to create a recruiter and employer marketplace. I said, okay, we will connect recruiters to employers. We will help them earn more income. We will help them land more mandates. In that process, we'll create a candidate platform. So that was going on well, but it was a bit too slow for my patience. And I realized that I wanted something which could be bigger, and could move a bit faster. And HR is a little bit of, that department has its complexities, right? It cannot really move fast, especially in large organizations, because there's a lot of politics you need to move around. And I'm like, am I focused on the wrong customer segment? So that's when I, moved on. And then me and Madhu was always itching to do something together. And then this idea happened of starting something within consulting and professional services, knowledge services, and, Praxis happened that way.
Okay. And you have also scaled Praxis in a highly competitive space.
Yeah.
What were some of the learnings from IIT Delhi that might have helped you, or in general, or some of the learnings besides the academic learning from IIT that helps in these journeys?
Yeah. From IIT, to be honest, I think you get a very solid analytical mindset about things. You're able to look at things in a very objective, mathematical manner. I think the bigger learning for me was from my Bain career, right, where you work with a lot of businesses, you understand strategy, you understand differentiation, you understand value creation. But that's very theoretical again. I think you start with very fancy dreams and, starry eyes. But when reality hits the ground, you realize the world out there is very different. So you need to do what makes what works, right, in that particular industry. Now, for example, when we started out, we were competing with firms which are $25-30 billion globally in scale. And it's a very uphill task. Now I had the benefit of being at Bain, having a 7-8 year experience. Also, of course, my partner was a partner at Bain. He had the network, and the commercial sort of savviness to get there. But otherwise, you can't enter. If I was to do this maybe 5 years back or 3 years out of Bain, I wouldn't have done it, because I had no comparative advantage to come and build something like this. But I think which is the one thing that you need to think about is, and we'll talk more about entrepreneurship and what it takes, but it's very difficult to compete with large firms.
I'm sure.
Because it just takes a toll on you. So anyway, we are where we are. I think a lot still needs to be done. I'm always glass half empty person. So all the best, more than celebrations always, right?
Yeah.
So that way. Yeah.
Okay. So there was a trend. There's still a trend in IIT. That after graduating, people pursue higher studies.
Yeah.
You didn't go for it.
Yeah.
Was it a conscious decision, or it just happened?
No, I was, to be honest, sick of studying. I was like 4 years, 1 year JEE. I was like, oh yeah, I can't do any. I want to earn. I want to, just work, and not what I
just go.
Yeah. Like later, maybe I could pursue. And frankly, Bain happened, so that was good. I got a good launch pad. I did 2-3 years. I did pursue. By the way, at some point of time, I did take GMAT. You got a good score and all as well. But I think by that point of time, I'd already decided that I will do entrepreneurship.
Okay.
That I want to do something of my own. And for that, I was like, you're spending about $150,000 for an MBA and you're spending more than that. You're spending 2 years. Might as well use that time and capital to start something of your own, if that's what you want to do. I do think, an Ivy League or a Harvard or a Stanford or something would have definitely helped expand on my network, but I don't regret not doing it because it's a slightly different path. If launching a great career, you want to pursue a private equity, you want to pursue a leading role. Consulting, thankfully, Bain never needed an MBA. But I think it professionally, it helps in your career. But if you're starting your own venture, I don't think there's a big value add, right? And we're increasingly seeing the value, of that dropping over time, right? And true skills, actually getting more valued, unless and until you're doing something very specialized.
Exactly.
Right. Of course, you build a great network. So you want to grow. The kind of job opportunities that you get after an Ivy League are phenomenal, which I probably even today I won't get, right? Because I don't have that stamp on me. But I think it didn't matter in my case. So I chose not to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
When hiring from IIT Delhi, what are some of the key pointers that you look at in a student you try to?
See, I mean, it depends what we're hiring for. For a management consulting role, it's very standard. Look, we look for people who have spikes in their career.
Can you elaborate?
Spikes in their CV. For example, have people done anything beyond acads or beyond something which is required to do of them? Like if they pursued sports, if they pursued any PR, have they been passionate about something that they've done a lot?
Yeah.
Proactively. Because in consulting, you need to be very proactive. You need enthusiasm, proactiveness. Clients will typically sort of give you a problem statement and it's up to you, whether you get it done or no. So we need people who are very proactive about something and if they've done something beyond what's been asked of them. So acads is important, it is hygiene, but it's not the differentiator. Beyond, let's say, 7.5, 8 CGPA, acad does not make a difference.
Yeah.
In fact, if it's too high on acads, then we also have a question marks. That is this person more interested in engineering and that kind of lines rather than doing a consulting role. So we're looking for 360-degree profiles, but with some spike, which they've truly pursued.
Any suggestions for institutes like IIT so that they can also push the students, make a more entrepreneur-friendly ecosystem, also help the students with more extracurricular activities, logical thinking, upskilling and things like that?
I think they need to do the reverse. I worked in Australia for about 6 months. I worked in Europe for a lot of time. And a big difference that I see between talent in India and Western talent is two things. Their EQ is very high.
Indian students?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Global students, their EQ is very high. So their ability to communicate between teams, and communicate is not just language. It's about, understanding emotions and,
We're building that relationship.
building the rapport, knowing how to act, right? Influencing people, motivating people, right? Actually giving the right kind of teamwork.
Yeah.
Teamwork is not easy. Like, how do you function as a team? 5 people get on a mission. I think those things are extremely undermined.
Okay.
And there is too much focus only on logical thinking. But to be honest, barring a few, the biggest entrepreneurs and successful people have been extremely successful with people.
Yes.
So you need to be good with people. You need to be able to influence social skills, right? The whole social status, all those things have become very important in today's world, right? Which is where international orientation, all-rounded development, right, is a lot of people who go to, let's say, US, etc., they reach the Indian talent, right? They reach the mid-level, but only a select few are able to cross that barrier, because I think the EQ development can be much better.
Okay.
I think that's one area where, because I think they're already pretty good on the logical and the analytical IQ side. I think it's too much IQ, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any best practices or advice for the students to upskill in that area?
I mean, pursue some externships, pursue some internships in sort of more in corporates and less engineering oriented environments, I think books have really helped. For me as an individual, I passed out and there's a learning curve, right? And there are a lot of good books on just leadership, on influencing people, on, very basic stuff like the Carnegie book on how to win how to win people and influence friends or whatever. That's it's like basics, We don't have them right in a lot of people who graduate from IT. So that's, I think, one area which people should invest a lot in.
Okay. And what kind of a student were you when you entered IIT? Like Aryaman in first year compared to Aryaman in fourth year?
Yeah, first, second year, I was actually pretty distracted with music and all of it. I remember that First sem I got a 6.5 GPA, and I was like, what the hell just happened?
Okay.
Last sem I got 9.7 or something. So it was actually reverse.
Okay.
Unlike a lot of people are different, the
Yeah,
first
they
few
start-
sems and then
they start good and then
yeah. For me, I was out of a boarding school, and finally, you've been looking for that freedom and all of it. So, and then I was like, look, I need to get back, just get my CGPA right. So last two sems was before placements, I think 9.5 or something. And then people like, who's this guy? Where it's come from? And then of course it was 8 or something. So that way, I think it makes.
okay. So you had your share of fun at IIT.
Yeah, like I said, had I to choose a college life again in at least this country, I would definitely choose IIT Delhi.
Okay. So tell us more about Praxis. How's it going? What is your vision?
Yeah. So, look, we've had our own share of experiments when we started off. We tried analytics, we tried everything, But the next few, for us, we're probably now about 100 odd plus consultants, 4 offices globally. We opened our international first office, Dubai, last year. In fact, I'm spending a lot of time in Dubai these days, mostly based out of there.
Okay.
It's been great here. It's had its last 1 or 2 years have been a bit tough for everyone in consulting. Growth has been a bit subdued. But, we at least got to a decent scale in the first 5 years. We had some good decisions which we made. In our first few years, we did a lot of work with consumer internet businesses, startups, which helped us, build a certain scale. Private equity has always been very big for us. And though the cycles come of investment, but it at least gives you a very solid baseline.
Okay.
And then the next few years for us is about investing and growing in a lot of futuristic sectors. Like we are doing a lot of work in healthcare. It's very big for us. We do a lot of work in clean mobility, clean energy.
These are all very
New age,
fields, yeah.
correct. New age areas, right? We do a private equity and venture capital, not venture, but growth capital in private equity is still very strong for us. Consumer internet, though it had its own way, but we see it coming back, right? I think the valuations have subdued. People have become more cost conscious. They've improved the fundamentals of their business. So we see that coming back. And then we've also started doing work in financial services and a couple of others. So these are the core areas for us. For next few years, we want to remain an emerging markets focused consulting firm where we focus on new age sectors, emerging markets, work with private equity, work with portfolio companies of private equity on those sectors in which we work in. So that has been our model and where we'll invest for future.
We wish all success for you.
We need it a lot here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And any advice for our young entrepreneurs from your learning of entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
If you could please.
It's been a very humbling journey, to be honest. I do think, and I won't talk about the obvious things. I think a couple of things which at least are very different from me and surprising, from now and maybe 6, 7 years back before when I started out. One, I think large markets are very misleading.
Okay.
So don't get misled by a large market opportunity, 100 billion TAM, 200 billion TAM. That is very misleading because large markets mean very large competitors and very large players who are doing what they're doing for years and years, and they are really good at it. They have the distribution, they have the network, they have the brand. It's very hard to displace them. No amount of capital that you go will be able to change a customer's trust, right? And again, so focus on a market which will be large in the future, not now, right? I think that's, of course, barring some deviations, but in general, I've noticed that large markets are very misleading. And even if you decide to do something in a large market, you need to focus on something which is niche and which has a very different TAM, within itself.
Cool.
I think that is one. Second is I love this whole new age concept of, balance with entrepreneurship, and it doesn't work.
Okay.
If you want to do entrepreneurship or if you want to be successful in anything in life, you can't have a balanced life because there's someone out there who's grinding like anything, you look at athletes, you look at any profession, you look at acting, even all the glamorous professions you look at. I mean, even if you look at the footballer, do you think Ronaldo has a balanced life? No, he doesn't. Right.
Of course.
works hard like anything, fine, he has a little bit of his family life.
Yeah.
The rest, he's playing football
see what's
all
behind
the
the
time.
camera.
You don't see it. So to be successful in anything, you need to forget balance, right? You can't have everything. So it's about trade-offs. You only have 24 hours in a day, right? So balance will never work. Yes, it doesn't mean that you need to give up on your health or give up on it, but you need to curtail down and say, look, this is the bare minimum, but so much of time. And it's fine if you don't like that. There's no forcing, right, to do entrepreneurship. And which is why this whole thing around, productivity, and to be honest, no one cares about productivity if you're doing entrepreneurship. What matters is total production. It's like productivity into number of hours.
Okay.
Like that's what matters. If you're working productively 2-3 hours a day, but someone is working maybe at 20% of your productivity for 12 hours a day, he's getting done much more stuff than you, right? So he'll move. And it's a competition. So you're competing, so you might as well play with the rules of the game.
Yeah, and in terms of competition, how do you get over that fear of failure? As a student, especially young students would be...
I don't think you should be scared of failure. I think failure teaches you more than what success teaches you. I think one should embrace failure, right? Because you get to learn a lot. You get leveled down. You truly know where you went wrong. And failure, to be honest, means that you're getting closer to success. So I think failure is okay. It happens. I've had my share of failures. I think you should not compete at a personal level. I think you should compete more about what is your business, what are you doing, rather than at a personal level. I think, and failure teaches you a lot, like what are you good at, what are you not good at. So it's okay to fail. You know more about yourself. And and different entrepreneurs, founders, I know founders who are extremely analytical, extremely deep in their business. And I know founders who are completely not involved, but great with people. So I think failure also teaches you what are you good at, right? And what are your skills and what are you not good at? And some things you're not good at, it's fine. You can't be good at everything. Get people who are good at that. So which was the second thing I was saying. Building a good team early, right? When you're starting, the initial 5-10 people are so critical because the culture and the DNA, once it gets built, you can't change it.
You can't,
right? So which basically means that the first level of hires that you do will hire people like them.
Yes.
So the first 5-10 critical mass of people that you create should be really good. I don't mean senior, but should be good. They should
people
fit
start resonating with whoever they are hiring. Right?
Yeah. So that
continues.
Yeah. Then I think the other thing is it's important to have fun what you're doing. Because if you don't, if you're only doing it for the money, it will not happen. Money is a byproduct of you adding value, right? And it might happen, it might not happen, right? If you don't get a good exit, right? What do you do then? You're stuck with it. I know founders who have built, let's say, $500 billion businesses. There is no exit. They're loss making, right? And they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because there's no part to wealth creation from that business. They can't get out because it ruins your reputation. 1 or 2 founders, we heard what happened, right? Left recently. They left their venture.
Yeah, that's a very tough
reputation in the market gets ruined. Totally. You can't do it. So what do you do? So worst cases, the downside will be you just end up doing it for your life. So might as well enjoy doing it. Pick something where you don't feel at all, right? Many other things, but I think this was some interesting learnings for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are your future plans for hiring from IIT Delhi? What is your approach going to be like?
Yeah, I think, it's a negotiation every time for a hiring day. We hope that never happens again. But I think over time, the best year we hired about 16 people from IIT Delhi, right?
Okay.
That was the biggest batch we hired. So we, of course, are very excited to continue. It's very close to my heart, the college. This year, of course, we're definitely going to hire. We're going to get more selective. I think we also had our learnings from hiring in the campus, and we're a bit different from other, some of our competitors. So we, of course, I think no change. We want to continue hiring. We want to continue to build the relationship. We've taken about 6-7 years to do this. And, it's one of our very critical sources of talent for us. So we're super excited to continue doing that.
We're so happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Also, for the past 2 years, you've also been giving back to IIT Delhi.
Yeah.
So, what is your vision?
Yeah, no, I mean, see, we of course donated a big amount to the college. Of course, I think it's a necessary responsibility for us to do it. We want to continue doing it. This is very important for us. We are doing, at the end, I do believe that if you're doing anything, entrepreneurship about giving back as much as possible, right, to everyone, to the society, and we want to do our job and play our part in actually building, helping the institutes and universities which have helped our business. Today, if we didn't have people from your college working with us, truly we would not have been where we are.
Yeah.
I think I thank everyone who has joined us from your college and literally put in a lot of sweat and blood with us to help us reach where we are. It would not have been possible without them.
Okay.
So I think it's and I think every business should do that. To the key colleges where you hire from, it is important to give back.
Very glad to know that.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me for this.
Yeah, and thank you for taking out time for us. There is one small section at the end where we conduct a rapid fire.
Yeah.
Just 2, 3. You just have to tell me which one would you prefer.
Out of syllabus, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. First year versus fourth year.
Yeah.
Which
what will I choose?
Yeah, what would you prefer?
Fourth
Fourth year.
Yeah.
Okay. Rendezvous, convocation. I think I know the answer.
Rendezvous.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Okay. Library or wind tunnel?
Wind tunnel. Yeah, wind tea, of course.
Your hostel or your department?
Hostel.
Hostel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, department. Sorry, because I never stayed at the hostel too much.
Okay.
I'm from Delhi, so I stayed a lot at home as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. What was the the best news for you? Getting your first job or getting into IIT?
Actually, both were very good. Yeah. Frankly, job I was not very surprised. I was expecting it, but the IIT Delhi thing, I mean, when I got a rank of, I think 600 or something, I was pretty happy. I was like, I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
So that was that was probably been happier.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last one is current life or student life?
Student life.
Student life.
Yeah, of course. Like, what do you mean?
So you would be happy
That's
to go
obvious.
back to your
Yeah, of
student
course.
life.
Any day happy to be, in your college again.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.